Give me money.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Ain't It Funky podcast. My guest today is Adam Janzi. Adam is based in Sweden and is the drummer for Swedish pop singer Dotter and Copenhagen-based prog metal band VOLA, whom I believe are one of the most unique, exciting prog metal bands out there right now. So as you can imagine, I'm very excited that Adam took the time to chat. Adam is an incredibly technical drummer, but has really managed to find his own identity on the drums and plays different styles with such finesse and groove. Our conversation was really insightful as Adam shares his fascinating mindset when it comes to music, drumming, and life in general, his unique setup of no rack toms but rather a floor tom each side of him. He talks about VOLA and how it's been growing these past years with the band. Adam also shares great advice for up-and-coming drummers on finding their own identity through overcoming comparison and focusing on creativity, and more. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you're listening. The video version is available on YouTube as well. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy. All right. Adam Janzi, welcome into the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, man. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Adam, let me start off by saying the new VOLA single, Paper Wolf, absolutely love it. Amazing song.
Thanks.
So does this mean that we're going to hear a new VOLA album anytime soon?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
amazing. Okay, incredible. I don't know how much you're allowed to divulge, but tell me more.
Yeah, I cannot tell you when, I cannot tell you what's on it, but there is another Vola album on the way. The
Amazing.
drums are recorded. And almost everything else is fully recorded. So
Okay.
it's nearing completion.
Yeah, okay, incredible. Where did you record that, or is that also secret?
So we worked with Jacob Hansen again.
Uh-huh.
This time my drum kit to his studio and recorded the drums there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing, man. Yeah, because the sound of the drums on Witness was incredible. Such a big production,
Yeah.
such a big drum sound.
Yeah, the drums were recorded in Gothenburg actually, at Jacob Herman's place, Top Floor Studios, and then Jacob Hansen mixed it. But this time we went
Okay.
straight to Jacob Hansen, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was the same guy for a moment, but no.
Two different Jacobs.
Two different Jacobs. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But man, that's amazing. That's incredible. But so take me back to, because I know you play for Dotter as well, the Swedish pop act. Was Dotter your first big gig, or what was your first sort of big gig as a drummer?
So I actually haven't done that much as a drummer. Like there is, if I don't count all the stuff as a kid when you played with friends. Like the first serious thing was my first band. It was a metalcore band called the Drake Equation. It was kind of where I went to the studio for the first time with that band, played my first shows with them, first live shows, and just kind of figured out that part of the music world. When I left that band, or towards the end of that band, I got the Dotter gig as the stand-in drummer. A few years later, I left that band. I did just covers on YouTube for a few years, 2 years maybe, and then I joined VOLA.
Right.
So it's a pretty short trip. But I'd say maybe, Dotter was the first, definitely the first paid gigs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? How did you find that gig?
So the studio where we recorded with the Drake Equation was in Stockholm, called Radionica Studios, run by a guy named Dino Melanhotic, and he is the boyfriend of Dotter.
Okay.
So back then he also played live with her, like as part of the band, and they make the music together and so on. And he had heard me playing, of course, since he recorded my drumming. I think I was 15 the first time I went to his studio, and he thought it sounded good. So when they needed a stand-in for a show, 2013 maybe, then he was like, "All right, Adam, do you want to try to play this show with us?" I said, "Yes, of course," and then it's been rolling from there.
Oh, amazing. How much preparation did you have for that show?
Um, I think I had like quite a good amount of time, at least a month.
Okay.
A few rehearsals and so on. I was living in Stockholm at that time, so I was um, like practicing on my way to work in the subway, listening to the songs. So I had a good amount of time.
Okay. And then how long was it until you found Vola?
Um, I joined VOLA in 2017, so it must, yeah, I cannot remember if it's 4 or 3 years after, something like that, but
Okay.
yeah, something like that.
And how much? Because I know you were already very into like Meshuggah and prog stuff, and also
Hmm.
obviously Korn and new metal stuff. But
Yeah.
did it take you much kind of adapting, going from a pop gig to Vola and doing Applause of a Distant Crowd, or was it kind of because it was in your genes, so to speak, anyway,
Hmm.
from a young age? How much adapting did that sort of take?
Um, in terms of the style itself, there wasn't that much adapting apart from the usual getting into a new band's sound and getting accustomed to it. The big part of the adapting was more um, just the professional world. Like the first festival outside of Sweden that I played was with Vola. First time flying with
Mm.
music gear, stuff like that. I needed some adapting, like figuring out what do I do. Um, but the style itself wasn't that. I was still very familiar with it because even though I played uh, with Dotter, I played. Um, I did the covers. I played a lot of metal stuff on my own. So all that stuff, all that proggy stuff, it was always there.
Oh, amazing. But so, because you mentioned the first big festival outside of Sweden, which festival was that? Where was that?
So it was uh, in Germany, Bonn, I think. Um,
Okay.
it was called Rockau Open Air German festival that went bankrupt.
Oh no.
Yeah, um, yeah, and it was middle of summer, and that was the time where the laptop of our keyboard player kind of got a meltdown on stage because it was too warm. It was like
Oh
40
no.
degrees, and we're right in the sun.
Oh dear. So how did what you guys just kept the show going and
Yeah, we did like acoustic thing, like with the, or not acoustic, but scaled down thing with some soft guitar, soft drums, I think,
huh.
while they were putting the computer in the shade and cooling it down, putting
Oh
some
wow.
fans on it. Then a
Yeah.
few minutes later, it worked again.
Oh wow. Lucky that that it started working again. But yeah, I guess that took
Yes.
some adapting to to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow, man. Yeah, and I guess because you obviously joined just before the recording of Applause of a Distant Crowd, and then of course Witness came a couple years later.
Hmm.
How's it been for you? Um, because I guess you've gotten more recognized over the past couple of years
Hmm.
and kind of broken through in the scene, and Vola, of course, has broken through in the scene. Um, how's that been for you? That experience of breaking through and being in a band that,
Mm.
has gotten to that stage? Obviously, it must be amazing, but tell me a little bit more about like your feeling of going year to year in Vola, and yeah, what that's been like.
It's really it's very rewarding because it's so gradual.
Hmm.
Like there's not, all of a sudden there's all this attention, but it's gradual. And the really cool thing about it is that you see people kind of joining in and then staying with you throughout this journey. So I get to know these people and I see them, from some have been there from before Vola, like just
Hmm.
watching a YouTube cover of me and then seeing me join Vola and then, meeting at a show and then, so that's very, very cool actually. It's very, very humbling.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
uh,
I can imagine, man. It must be incredible, yeah, to be in a band like that, and yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you guys are gonna just continue to grow from here. It's it sounds like it's with Vola, it's such a like natural evolution of like you guys seem to push more and more boundaries from album to
mm,
album, and I think obviously you can hear certain influences of like when you go on the Wikipedia page, you can see like Meshuggah, Porcupine Tree, and
mm,
certainly you can hear the influence. But I feel like you guys have done an amazing job of of meshing those sounds together, but still having it sound actually pretty unique in today's prog world.
thanks.
And yeah, man, it's killer. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, and especially because I wanted to talk to you also about like you're a very creative drummer, and I know you said in another interview that you're not really one to sit down and like practice your rudiments on the practice
Yeah.
pad or be really like yeah put on the metronome and
Mm,
do your paradiddles and your
mm.
whatever's rudiments, but um how what is your creative process of like coming up with drum parts? And yeah, how do you go about that?
It depends on the music that I'm making, but I feel like the thing that has kind of grown over the years for me and that is the main part is just the general context. Um, when there's a song that clearly is something happy in a disco mood,
Hmm.
it gives you a lot of clues of potential ways to go. And then depending on where you want to take that song, you have a few choices, a few instincts, and then you can just kind of go with that and either let the instincts take over or go with some conscious decisions. But you have like already a playing field just based on what the music and the band is. I feel like that goes for all kind of art, no matter what. If you're an actor and you're in a horror movie, I mean, you know, you're not gonna be like silly and do some weird comedy stuff if it's supposed to be this super dramatic and dark horror movie, or if it's a very sad drama. While if it's a rom-com, then there's other rules you can adhere to.
Hmm.
Um, and then you also know how to break those rules if needed. So that's how we got dark comedy, for example,
Right.
laughing at stuff that we shouldn't laugh at. It's
Yeah.
funny and it's dark at the same time. Um, so there's like a lot of ways to go, and I feel like with music we look too much on basically is this cool or not, while there could be so much more to it. Does this feel stressful enough? I want it to feel more stressful. Does this feel too sad or too happy? Is this aggressive enough? Um, there's so much more there that we can kind of grasp onto, and that's what I've been trying to explore, and what I'm mainly thinking about when writing drum parts. All the rest kind of falls into place, like the technical stuff, because depending on what you already have there in the song, if there's a riff, if there's a vocal melody, if there's a theme, it also narrows it down, Yeah, so I just think context is the most important, and when you start thinking about the context, stuff will just naturally fall into place.
Right. So it's sort of more intuitive for you, I guess, when you have a part or you have a certain vibe of a song. Um, it's I guess it's intuition. Is that?
Yeah, but also there's also room for conscious thought there, because if I feel like it's a very wooden and dry song, then I can consciously think about, okay, well, that big ride bell is not very dry or wooden. Maybe the rim of the tom can fit that universe, or maybe this dry hi-hat that I go for can work well within that context and put you in that world. And then when this big reveal at the end of the at the end of the last chorus arrives, where it turns out that the song is about Terminator, well, maybe then we introduce the metallic elements to point out the arrival of the robot, whatever. So there you can still like plan and think, but still there is the context that you're kind of playing with. I feel like, let's say you want to cook food, and you can choose anything you want in the whole world, like all the ingredients in the world. Well, what are you going to cook? You will think for quite a long time. While if you know that, okay, it's winter, well, tomatoes aren't, it's not really the season of tomatoes. Strawberries are not growing outside. Well, we still got some potatoes, some apples, this and that. So that puts the context that you're working with. So then you make a winter meal. That's why when you go to some restaurants, it's like the autumn season now. So then they work with vegetables, so that of the autumn. Well, why not with music as well? Okay, this is a very angry, aggressive song about the Spartans, the 300 Spartans. Okay, well, then you have your context there. Then maybe you can work more with elements fitting that world, and not introduce, Gandalf in a Ferrari. It's going to ride a horse. It's not going to drive a car. It's the same thing with music. So yeah, there is intuition there, an instinct, but a lot of conscious decisions as well.
Okay. Yeah, and you've obviously got a very I know you've been asked about this a lot, but you've got a very unique setup, right? So no rack toms. You got the two floor toms either side of you, and you said it was obviously so you could have better access to the cymbals. When maybe someone says they're with playing a solo, for instance, they limit the resources they can use, the drums they can use. Was that sort of the thought process of why you ultimately came to prefer that setup? Was that kind of to have maybe less resources, so not all the rack toms and loads of stuff, but did that kind of play into the decision of having that kind of setup, or was that just something that you eventually got to and figured out that's what you prefer?
Yeah, that was something that arrived with it. So that wasn't the idea behind it. part of it was just experimentation, just trying stuff out. Part of it was also to see what I want to kind of express, what would be my color palette. When you ask someone what's your favorite color, they're not saying, maybe some people do, but most don't say all of them. They limit themselves to, I really like black, or I like red, or, For the gamers out there, when you're choosing a class in a role-playing game, some people clearly prefer to play a rogue. Some people prefer a wizard. So they're usually sticking to the wizards or to the warriors or whatever in most games, or that's their go-to thing. What's our go-to on the drums, or what's our base character? That's what I was kind of looking for. And the way I did it was first to just put as much, like everything that I want in there. So I had like 3 rack toms, 2 floor toms, like 7 different stacks, 3 crashes, all kinds of stuff. And then I would see what is necessary and what is not. What can I do without? And I would just remove the stuff I could do without. And there I obviously removed the rack toms because they were a bit in the way. And also part of my character is more oriented towards large and low-tuned toms.
Right.
And the fact that there's one on each side is for that flexibility, but also for this primal feeling of it. I don't have to dig technically to figure out how to play those 2 floor toms on the right. It's just one on each side, just hit down. That's all. It's cavemanish. So it just came from that place of discovering, okay, well, what do I want to say? Who am I behind the kit? And yeah, if this was a role-playing game, what would be the character? If this was a meal, what would be my favorite meal? And so on. So yeah, it was part of this discovery. And then what you mentioned, it came with it. It opens creative doors when you've limited yourself in that way. So I couldn't do the typical drum roll, so I kind of had to figure that out, and then that opened some new pathways and some new options that became my go-to stuff with the years and so on. And I think that's also healthy to just try stuff out like that, because you don't know what might become your unique go-to thing or your unique solution to something that you cannot do anymore in the conventional way.
And apart from drums, do you play any other instruments? Because I know you kind of write your own music. Do you play any other instruments?
Well, I do a lot of percussion.
Right.
But that's kind of the same thing. I don't play guitar or anything like that well. I can get by just to write some music, but that's about it. But yeah. I do sing. That's the thing now that I'm getting well into. So I plan to release some solo stuff soon, where it's some focus on my singing as well, and not just the drumming.
Oh, amazing! Is that singing and drumming at the same time, or is that
no
just singing?
Just singing, yeah. Singing and drumming. That's too difficult for me.
In another interview, I know you said that you played very basic guitar on, I don't know if that was that your stuff or on some VOLA stuff or something.
No, it was
overdubbed some.
my stuff. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. But
yeah,
is that do you write songs on the guitar, or is it
yeah.
yeah? Oh,
I
okay.
do. I like my ear can figure out melodies. I'm just not technically proficient on the guitar, so it's like one string stuff. It's nothing crazy.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but still, it's the same thing there. I don't consider myself a guitarist, but I consider myself a musician. So
Yeah.
there's still this this view on the music. Where do I want to take it? And then how can I make that happen? So even if I just have an acoustic guitar and I can only play it one string at a time, well, I figure it out somehow.
Mm.
Now, with the drums, I can survive in a professional setting. I go in the studio, I can play what's needed. With the guitar, I figure stuff out. I'm not gonna learn a full song because I don't care about the guitar. So it's like one string stuff. Sometimes I take a violin bow and I play some stuff on it. Um, yeah, and keyboard, it's the same when I just want to make some loops to groove to or whatever. I cannot you know do any chords or any stuff like that. I just put some notes that I like and then I go with that. I really think that creativity is the most important part to it. The technique, it's just depending on what you want to do with it. But there's too many people that are afraid of doing stuff because they feel like they're not worthy because their technique is not that good, while they don't stop and think about, well, where is their creativity at? And also, you should just make music no matter what level you're at. I mean, it should just be fun.
That is true, man. Yeah, it's easy
Yeah,
to compare yourself or to get disheartened.
yeah,
But it's as you say, it's kind of like, why did you fall in love with music in the first place, or
mm,
with drums? There was a certain, either you saw someone or heard a certain record, and there was a certain feeling, and that was, it sparked like your creativity, and you
yeah,
felt passionate about it, and you,
mm,
at the beginning, you didn't worry about rudiments and technique, and you just kind of, yeah,
mm,
you played for the love of it, and then unfortunately, yeah, eventually, especially once it becomes something that's a career,
yeah,
I think sometimes it can kind of weigh heavy. Oh, am I good enough? Or
mm,
yeah, it's
yeah. That's right.
have you felt like that sometimes? Is that something that kind of that you from time to time, do you find yourself comparing yourself to other drummers, or do you not really find that issue?
I try not to do that, but it happens, and I think it happens for everyone probably. Everyone has moments where they feel like they're an imposter or they're not legitimate, and there's other people who would do that better than you, and all that stuff. Um, but as long as you know that those thoughts may arrive, then you know that they're temporary and that they're not welcome, and
Mm.
you can kind of survive that little patch of insecurity, and then just go on and do continue to doing your own thing. Um, I also think that social media doesn't help
Mm.
when you see people who kind of make it seem like they are at a certain level when they are not, um, and make it seem like it's a walk in the park. Um, when other musicians see that and they feel like I could never do that, or that's so beyond me,
Mm.
or they begin to strive towards that, then they realize that, wait, this is beyond my reach actually, because it's not human.
Mm.
It's the same thing with the struggle we've had for quite a long time on social media with body ideals. where people strive for stuff and it's clearly not human because it has been altered online. Well, we're seeing a lot of that in music as well. Stuff that's being altered for social media that is actually not realistic. It's important to also remember that social media is like a sensation thing. It's not the everyday. It's not the kind of comfort of routine. What you're going to see on social media is a 3-star Michelin restaurant meal, and you find it very impressive. But you're not going to see those meals that you eat 80% of the time. Meatballs and potatoes and some gravy or whatever. That is just as important and comforting as all the fancy stuff. That's why you have drummers who are not social media sensations, but that do music that is kind of what we all consume with pleasure. Can be movie music or whatever. Like, we're not looking at, okay, well, who was the drummer behind that movie? We don't know that, but we love that movie soundtrack. While the social media sensations, it's a different kind of sphere, where social media is their realm. Like, that's where they thrive. But when we begin to mix that stuff up and not see clearly like what is what, then it becomes very difficult to find your own place in it. The same thing goes for what we've had before social media, the different types of drummers, where we usually put one category as pocket drummer and one category as kind of chops drummer. And then you begin to look at, all right, well, this is incredible pocket and this is incredible chops. Okay, well, I need to be both. And then it evolves even more from there. Like, okay, well, this guy can play super fast, like 3000 BPM. And this guy can groove like nothing I could ever imagine. And then this guy can play crazy ostinatos. This guy plays insane polyrhythms. And, you begin to dive into all of that. And you think that, well, I have to be all of it. Or that you have to be all of it to be a drummer. But it's not true. It's all just different categories, different places, whether it's a drum clinic drummer who's just purely like an athlete showing you what incredible things he can do, or a pocket drummer who just sits behind the most fantastic music, or a composer who is behind all those fantastic movies and games, or that social media sensation who is really entertaining to watch, or whatever it might be. It's different categories, and once we kind of make our peace with that, I think it becomes more clear. We're not thinking that, okay, I have to be an amazing drummer, an amazing guitarist, an engineer, an astronaut. Like, we're choosing our paths in life, and with music, it's the same. You cannot be everything, and you don't have to be everything. And it's fun to just dive into your sphere and figure out what you want to express, no matter what the rest are doing.
For sure.
So I think that's where my thoughts go on that topic.
Yeah, it's very wise. And I know you talked about you said in another interview about you had a teacher back when, because you said you could play Meshuggah and polyrhythmic stuff, and you thought you were a hot shot because you could play all this crazy stuff. But you said the teacher humbled you because he made you play Back in Black, right?
Yes.
And like
right.
more like simple stuff. And you said the groove just didn't sit right.
Yeah.
And then you said he really pushed you to kind of find your own identity. How did he go about that, and what methods did he give you to find your own identity?
Yeah, so he was actually he is a really good teacher. He was a very big influence on me. Svetlan Rocket, Swedish guy. Very, very fantastic teacher. And yeah, like you mentioned, I would arrive being able to play Meshuggah, thinking I was above him, but he kind of put me down on earth pretty fast. And already there a valuable lesson from the start. What we would do, so Back in Black, it was the first song of many. What we would do is he would throw songs at me. Could be, yeah, AC/DC, Anastasia, Devin Townsend sometimes, Level 42, bunch of other stuff. So would vary a lot in genre and style. And what he would want me to figure out was to capture the essence of the song, what's important. So that starts with listening, figuring out, well, what is it that we need to capture here? And then how do you go about capturing that? So if there's a song that is very, strict and packaged, maybe detail work to nail every hit is very important in that song. When it's the song like Back in Black, then you have to see which hits are the main hits, which elements can you be without, and which elements can you not be without. And then there's also stuff like, well, here you have to be a bit more laid back and heavy. That's the core of this song. We don't care if you nail all the crash hits or not. Maybe here you have to be a bit softer on the kick, but heavier on the snare. Or you have to nail the very subtle hi-hat opening transitions. Or maybe this song is just about, figuring out the thought behind the drummer's decisions. So would be lessons like that for each song. And the thing that would kind of mold me into finding my identity, it would be when I had a song like that in the pocket, it's done, we're about to move on to the next one. The stuff that I resonate with, I will bring that with me. And the rest will just stay a lesson in the past. So some of what I learned for each song would really speak to me, and I still have those things with me, while some of that stuff would drop off. It was a lesson. I did that. I understood that. So I broadened my view a bit. And now it's nothing that interests me. So I put it to the side, but I've at least experienced it. And that was a great way to subconsciously, I would say, open this discussion of, well, who do you want to be? And when you ask yourself that question, who do you want to be? Well, it goes into the realm of who are you? Because you usually want to be what you are at that point, while we think we want to be something else. In the end, we just discover who we are. But we discover who we are. We don't create a new being, a new person. He would say that we would, with each song, we would chip away a little bit on the stone and kind of reveal the diamond or the fossil. Like each song is a little dent, and with the years, many years, you will see more clearly, but you will never fully be done. It's a process that will continue forever.
Wow. And then so yeah, through that I guess you fizzled out the stuff that didn't end up resonating with you, and you ended up kind of finding the stuff that did, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't have to be conscious. Like you don't have to make a list. Like, okay, well, this idea about opening the hi-hat this much or closing it on heavy parts, well, that I keep. And this idea, it can just kind of arrive. It's like you're just putting pieces of clay on a big clump of clay. So it
Mm.
all just kind of, it permeates through. Um, and what's even more valuable with what it taught me is that I would find that inspiration can be found way outside of the boundaries of drumming. If you look for the essence in things, you can extract that essence and figure out what it means to you on your instrument. Let's say you're you want to go for the precision and the unwavering pursuit of truth that Richard Dawkins has, the evolutionary biologist, when he writes books or when he speaks about the topic. Well, then you just lift that over into your realm. Okay, unwavering pursuit of truth, precision, um, unapologetic. Let's say you're going in a realm of something more aggressive but very rapidly intelligent, and you go into the realm of the journalist and writer Christopher Hitchens. Well, you still have some essence there to draw from. Or let's say you go to the kind of minimalistic and modern approach to movie music of Hans Zimmer. Well, there you have stuff to adapt to the drumming. Can go even further. Just the probably what you've seen in Sweden, the way the night sky looks now during winter when it becomes dark around 3 p.m. and it's like orange, pink in the sky, or the way the sun never really rises overhead, it's always low, and the colors are more cold here in the north, it's more blue rather than yellow. Well, there's a lot of stuff you can draw on from there. You want to make something more cold. You want to make something cold and dry, which kind of mimics the way the air is up here, because it's cold and dry. It's not wet like when you're living near the sea. Um, there's, all of that. There's tons of inspiration and possibilities there. And that's also what I use when composing. I try to dive into that stuff. If there's a song about being, I usually take up this example with my students. If there's a song about being chased in the forest or running in the forest, if you're running because you're jogging, you're exercising, well, no need for a feeling of stress. Then we want kind of a high-paced momentum that is moving forward to mimic this feeling, but we don't want any stress or heaviness. But what if you're running in the forest because you're running away from the killer? He's right behind you. Well, then we gotta put some stress in there, but still keep this high pace. What if it's dry outside? What if it's summer? It's dry, you're running on dry leaves. Well, maybe you take that super dry hi-hat and you really hit it as if it was footsteps. That's inspiration coming from a place which has nothing to do with drumming per se from the start. So yeah, I would encourage people to just try to explore inspiration outside of drumming a bit more, because there's a lot to find there.
That's an incredible way of looking at it, man. That's incredibly valuable insight. Yeah.
Cool.
Do you find that that sometimes also maybe stepping away from drums for maybe a week or two, do you find that, and going and doing other hobbies, having other things in your life apart from music and drums, do you find that that also helps like spark your inspiration and creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the more the years pass, the more I find that to be true.
Right.
It's I think it might have been Stuart Copeland who said it. I don't remember.
Mm.
I remember Todd Zuckerman mentioning that. I think Stuart Copeland said it, so it's like heard from a person, heard from a person. To become an interesting drummer, you should become an interesting person. It's not word for word, but it's the essence of the statement, kind of. Instead of just being like, okay, now I'm going to learn this next rudiment. This is the next speed that I have to get to. Well, go for a hike. Learn how to fight. Try to pick some locks. See if you can understand the science behind the eye. Maybe you want to learn Japanese. Whatever it is. See if you can kind of expand yourself as a person. That will, without a doubt, add so much value to your life as a musician. And it will open up doors to inspiration that you didn't even know existed. So I definitely think it's valuable. And you don't have to do intense periods of music and then step away for 2 weeks and then intense periods. Sometimes it happens based, depending on work. I mean, that's normal. But if you can just keep a healthy balance where you do a bit of both, then you will have the best of both worlds, where you're not abandoning your music, but you're also exploring the world out there. As a musician, you kind of tell people through movement of air what is out there that we cannot see or touch, but we can feel. We can feel love. We can feel sadness or anger and many other emotions in all of their different forms and combinations. Our job is to convey that through music. How are we supposed to convey that in all its nuance if we don't even experience it ourselves and are just stuck behind our tool? So I think that's the essence of it is to go out and explore the world.
I suppose it's also why most like popular music, most hits, whether you could date back to the Beatles or the Stones, or also in modern music, it's about heartbreak. It's about very intense emotions, because obviously we as humans, we have what you call negativity bias, right? We gravitate more, unfortunately, towards the negative, towards, we 99 things could go right. And the one thing that went wrong is what you kind of mentally, what you're mentally focused on. I suppose in popular music, it's most hits in history are about actually a negative emotion. Yeah, and I guess that's what we feel the strongest, right? Like most songs are about, go back to the blues. Like my baby left me, woke up this morning and my baby was gone. It's all about like heartbreak and that that aching feeling. And people have channeled that energy into their music, and it's created the best art of all time. So
yeah, for sure. I don't think it's necessarily only about the negative stuff, but definitely it's like you say, we gravitate towards that. That's what we focus on quite often. But even if it's positive stuff, there's still this kind of pull. We're being drawn to it varies depending on what point in life we are, where we are, what our situation is like. But that's the kind of the good thing with the diversity in music, that there's so much different stuff and such specific stuff. Yeah, there's I think that kind of speaks also to this thing of you don't have to make music that will appeal to everyone, because then you're not kind of exploring the emotional richness that's out there. You're more focused on kind of appealing to everyone, being accepted. And yeah, ironically, sometimes the road to being there is not trying to be there. That makes sense.
Yeah. You said not to worry. I heard you say in another interview. I heard you say don't worry about, for like up and coming drummers, don't worry about making it, but work hard. What would you say are like the most important aspects for up and coming musicians to work on?
Definitely finding their own identity, not being scared to try new stuff. And I don't mean just try a new snare head. I mean really try new stuff and highlight it. And don't get blinded by what you think you should do. Just have fun with it. That's really such a simple but such an important approach. It will keep you in the game the long run. If you're just kind of chasing it like this kind of hustle culture of, no sleep, all work, your joy is going to disappear pretty fast. It has to be something where you can do it for a long time and not get tired of it. You can have fun and enjoy it, no matter if you become the next Jesus or if you only play music for your parents. Yeah, I would say that's probably the most important thing.
Okay. And we're slowly coming to the end of this episode. But is there anything that you'd want to plug, anything you want to shout out that you got coming up?
I guess if you're interested in metal, you can listen to VOLA, see if it's something you like.
For sure.
Yeah, this year there will be new VOLA stuff for sure, and new solo stuff where I explore some different aspects of my musicianship or my character, my personality. I will do my first drum festival this year, actually, in
Wow.
Slovakia.
Wow.
So that's gonna be fun. But yeah,
Who's that with?
nothing. That's I recently saw that they announced all the drummers on it. I think so bad at pronouncing his name, Borlai.
Gergo?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
He's gonna be part of that, so that's gonna be cool to see him play. But yeah, I don't really have anything concrete to plug. Just happy to chat and very happy to meet you, and thank you for inviting me.
Man, thank you for thank you for taking the time. And, as I mentioned before, I've been a fan of VOLA since I think Witness was the album that got me into you guys. And actually, I mean, this sounds a bit cliche, but it really got me through a tough time a couple of years ago. I mean, it obviously came out 2020. It was 2021, right?
Could have been 2020 even, I think. Or I don't remember. No, 21.
Actually, yeah, and it was 21. But yeah, no, but yeah, I remember going through a rough time at that time mentally, and I remember a very good friend of mine showed me the album. Like I got in his car and he was like, "Oh, dude, have you heard of this band VOLA? They just dropped their new record." I'm like, "No, I've never heard of these guys." And so he put it in and like turned it up, and obviously Straight Lines, such a banging opener. And I was instantly like, "Oh man, this is good." And then once it was one of those albums where like one song after the other, you're like, "How have I not been listening to this band my entire life?" And yeah, man. So
That's
hey,
so
honestly,
cool.
such a pleasure to have you on, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm happy we could bring you through that rough patch as well. That's cool.
Absolutely, music is so powerful, man. It really,
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, as you said before, not just in negative times, but also in positive times.
Yeah,
Celebrate life. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
thank you, Adam.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Give me money.